Welcome back, everybody, on board the Supercede yacht here for the Reinsurance podcast from Monte Carlo Rendezvous 2023. Delighted to have on board with us Tobias Sonndorfer, member of the management board at VIG Re. Welcome, Tobias. How are you?
Thank you, Ben. Good to have me. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm good. Bit hot, but in general, I'm feeling well.
Excellent. And how is your conference going so far?
Well, it's going quite well. It's really good to be back in Monte Carlo. It's fantastic to see many of old colleagues and friends and to enter into renewal discussions, certainly more from an industry level, but it's good to be back.
Absolutely. And what's your, I guess maybe you could actually give us a bit of context about VIG Re and how you've grown and what's going on, but what's your main message or conversation topic been as you've been out meeting clients and partners?
Well, as always in Monte Carlo, it's just the kickoff, right? So we're just trying to understand what was happening over the year, what was the focus, how did the portfolio develop, how did companies develop, what are topics our clients are interested in, and that was the main conversation about. In terms of VIG Re, because you've asked, I think it's probably important to mention that VIG Re is the reinsurance company of the Vienna Insurance Group, and we celebrate 15-year anniversary this year. So,
congratulations.
Thank you. Actually, in August, we turned 15. And it was quite an interesting journey over the last years, I have to say. So VIG restarted back in 2008 as the group captive of VIG, and then developed itself. And nowadays, we are both certainly the VIG group captive on the one hand side, but a proper third-party reinsurer on the other hand. We're serving continental Europe as our main underwriting territory, I would say. That's underpinned by two branches, which we do have, one in Paris, one in Munich. VIG Re is headquartered in Prague in the Czech Republic. Many don't know that, so we are very often associated with Vienna, actually.
Yeah.
Given the name, certainly that makes sense.
Nice city to be based in there, I guess.
Yeah, so, absolutely. It's a fantastic city. It's a vibrant city, I can tell you.
Definitely.
Very busy, specifically over summer, very busy. Many tourists are visiting Prague, so it's a beautiful city. I can everyone recommend who haven't been there to visit Prague. So continental Europe is at the heart. We're trying to be close to our clients. That's the reason why we have those branches and develop our business there. We do as well Asian business. We call that mature Asia, which is in our definition, it's Japan, it's Taiwan, and South Korea. And that's what we're trying to execute and where we want to serve our clients. And that's basically also the message for the renewal. So we are there, we want to stay there, we are there to play sustainably, and we would want to increase our footprint in those underwriting territories and go deeper, so to say, into deeper relationship with our clients and onboard some new clients, hopefully. But that's basically it. So what we do not plan an expansion into any other territory. VIG Re stands for this region which I just told you, and that continues to be the case also for the coming renewal.
Really, really interesting. And it sounds like you're the perfect person to sort of guide us through what's been going on in Europe recently, because obviously we've seen losses happening in a few places. Yeah. How's continental Europe looking as a whole for you guys and in general?
Well, I do my best, but the first thing to mention about continental Europe, it's very different. So, yes. As you can imagine, many different markets, also in the terms of the development, many different markets, and what the status of the markets are. We're born out of CEE, so to say, and the CEE region is also different from Western Europe, I would say, in terms of saturation and in terms of perils of coverage, so to say. But you mentioned one important thing specific for Europe this year, and that are smaller regional events, you could say. Yeah. Not necessarily making the headline of the global reinsurance landscape, but very significant for those people certainly affected in those countries, and certainly also very significant for the insurers being active in those countries, and not least for the reinsurers being active in those countries. So it's indeed true. So if we look into Europe, certainly the biggest event we had was the Turkish quake. Happened in February. It's devastating consequences that had, and that certainly was the biggest one. But it's followed up by smaller ones during summer. So we had floods in Austria, we had floods in Slovenia, we had heavy rainfall in Italy. just to mention a few, and it's more and more that's the phenomenon we see these days, that those mid-sized, smaller events, very locally contained, are increasing.
Yeah.
And certainly the losses associated to it are really big, for the region even dramatic. And again, another phenomenon we do observe here is that the economic loss associated to it deviates significantly from the insured loss, which causes a bigger question, certainly, regarding the question, what is the role of insurance and reinsurance when it comes to the coverage of natural catastrophes. And that's certainly something we, I think, for VIG Re, but for the entire industry, something we should think about. How can we close this gap of economic loss and insured loss? Because certainly the impact of insurance, or the social aspect of insurance, should be visible exactly in those moments, which is unfortunately not always the case. So, but it's true, that was what was driving the summer in Europe.
Yeah, and I guess, do you see reinsurers having a big role to play in enabling local insurers to push forwards on penetration? I guess, how much of the protection gap is between the buyers and the insurers, or how much is between the insurers who need the capacity to offer it around Europe?
Yeah, I think it's a joint effort to play here. So I don't finger point to anyone, and not least, I mean, being part of an insurance group, that's something we discuss certainly within VIG too, so how to close this protection gap. Absolutely. So it's not, I'm not finger pointing to anyone, but it's a joint effort. Certainly reinsurers need to deploy capacity into those perils. I think that's the case, that's what I hear. That capacity has been deployed, certainly on a significantly different price level than it was a couple of years ago, but that's a whole separate discussion. And then certainly the access to the client through the insurer, and the question of how is this penetration being executed. And again, in Europe, that's a very specific question again, because the buying behavior in those countries is very different too. So I think there's no easy answer to it. So if there would be an easy answer, I guess someone would have cracked the nut already. But given the accelerated frequency of those events, I think it's more and more important to think about exactly those type of coverages.
Absolutely. And I don't know, again, in terms of how much is insured and reinsured, but we've read a lot in the news, because in the UK, many tourists go out to places that recently had lots of wildfires. So the Greek wildfires, does that come under sort of this disaster radar as well? Or
absolutely, I would say that. That's another element. I mean, if you zoom out a little bit, it's actually that it's very there's very long dry periods actually, and then so it's too little rain, and when it's raining, then it's too much rain. So the sheer amount is too much, but also the circumstances to which the rain comes to on the ground, so to say, is not the ground is not able to soak it up, so to say, and that causes those problems, and then those floodings at the end of the day. So it's related to each other, I would say. So that's at least how we see it.
Very interesting. And what sort of topics are catching your interest at the moment as you go through Monte Carlo and have all your meetings? Anything that keeps coming up that you've thought that's something that the industry needs to focus on?
Well, the industry, I think, is in an interesting stage, given the many influences you currently observe. I mean, the list is very long, and the underlyings didn't really change dramatically compared to last renewal. I mean, we still have, if we look into the global geopolitics, a kind of an uncertainty. We still have interest rates on the rise, I would say, from the major central banks across the globe, where it's not exactly clear the route will go. That certainly has been fueled by inflation. So, question whether inflation already peaked or not is a question which remains to be seen, but is certainly driving the behavior, if I may say so, of future cash flows, and the question and the impact to pricing accordingly. I think the macroeconomic landscape, I would rather say it, in which the reinsurance industry operates, is keeping us busy. And next to this, certainly climate change, or the phenomena we see in the natural catastrophe front, is paying into this too. So it's the list is long, and I could endlessly continue. But I think here in Monte Carlo, the discussions I have is very much around the development over the last renewal, which was certainly specifically for Europe a very different renewal compared to the almost 10 years before, I would say. And the discussion is now on how do we enter into this renewal, what are the focus points, and all those points are still there, all those points to drive the industry. And it's really to align and start the alignment on that for the coming renewal.
Very exciting. And I guess one of the things that keeps coming up as we talk about a harder market and seeing continuing rate increases and so on, is it being harder for cedents to buy their reinsurance and competing with each other in this kind of beauty contest. I know we've talked in the past about data quality and turning up as best as you can to the renewal season. What do you look for as a reinsurer from cedents coming to market in terms of great data and so on?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So the preparation for the renewal is key, and proper data quality is key too, because we do expect, specifically on the net cat, or specifically on property books, I would even call it broader, we do expect an even higher demand from the insurance side for the reasons just mentioned. And I think let's say, what have started last renewal with redesigning structures, with moving up retentions, also to certainly adjust limits due to inflation and growth, that will drive the property book, I would assume, and the data quality is key, because we as a reinsurer, we have the aim to get a proper technical assessment of the portfolio we are underwriting. So it's not about, there is a commercial element in that certainly, which comes after, but the driver is a proper technical assessment. That's the foundation of everything we do. And the better we get a handle into that, and the more information we have, how an insurance company is coping with inflation, how this has been incorporated into the developments, how this can be also incorporated and transferred into the market. That's what's important for us, because that determines future cash flows, which is the underlying for our pricing. So I think data is important, and the more we get the ambiguity out of an underwriting judgment, the better it is. Certainly there will always be an underwriter judgment at the end of the day, but I think that's what I have in mind to that.
Yeah, brilliant. So looking forward to the 1/1 renewals this year. What do you think we'll be reflecting back on it next year with similar excitement to the last year, or do you think a bit calmer?
I think it will be different this year. So my impression is that last renewal was, I wouldn't say a shock, but I think it was some cedents discovered the reinsurers from a different angle, and vice versa. So my expectation would be that it's much more ordered. The communication is key to be successful from my point of view. I think that the messages simply need to be clear. As we said, the fundamental drivers tend to say that specifically on property, rates will continue to go up. And right so, given the challenges that we discussed about. It remains to be seen what's happened on the casualty side, actually, because here the situation is a different situation. It's significantly different in part. But I think communication is key from both ends, and from our side, we try to be as close as we can to get a proper and transparent insight of what our behavior is about. That, from my experience, is important to bring your message across, but stay with your client, because that's what's really important for us.
Oh, brilliant. Well, hopefully we can sit down together again next year and see what's happened.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, but thanks for joining us on the podcast. We're very excited to see you at the rest of the conference.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Ben. Thanks for having me. Thank you.